Yes, once again, thank you for inviting us to discuss on a very critical issue which has been thrown to us now, although it's not a new subject or new topic which has been going on at least for the last 2 decades, if I may say so, although there is a longer history to it. But I was of the I was thinking that when you introduced and you said that last but not the least, that I would get the chance at the last, and that would have been an interesting one to sort of listen and then reflect. But whatever you have decided. Let me sort of, I'll be very brief, but I'll try to contextualize my position and my take on this, which is being driven by two moments. We are talking about the current Supreme Court judgment, which in a way, my attempt would be to kind of understand whether, I mean, of course, there's no denial and there's no doubt that the challenge and the task given to the Supreme Court in the current context was only to decide the matter of law, right? And the matter of law in terms of the interpretation of the past verdict and the interpretation of the Constitution as it is being reflected in Article 16.4 or Article 341. It's absolutely clear that instead of looking at that interpretation of that law, it actually has, there is a sense of overreach in terms of what it could do and what it has done. And why I do see it as an overreach, I'll come to that in a while, but let me begin by my engagement with that issue. And I'm proud to say in the sense that that my engagement with this issue was, started exactly 2 decades before when this this issue actually came to light, when the first verdict of the Supreme Court, the E.V. Chennaiah judgment, had come in 2004, which had struck down the subclassification. And subsequently, I was part of the, as a scholar, I was part of the, part of studying the movement, which was coming, I mean, as it was said, that I was studying the movements of the marginalized, and in that sense, we were doing a comparative study of the Ravidasi movement in Punjab with the Nav Buddha movement in Maharashtra, and that was the context in which I was exposed, and I was forced to reflect upon the movement which was there in Punjab and Maharashtra both, and in other states as well. So there was a position which I made on the basis of my understanding of the movement, my engagement with the movement. And when I'm saying, in terms of Punjab, I was talking about my engagement with the movement of the Ravidasis as well as the movement of the Valmikis, the Mazhabi Sikhs and Valmikis. And my very close engagement, which reflected into an EPW small sort of article with Surinder in Sociology, which was published in 2007, a reflection of what we thought was very important. And that's where one positioning came. And subsequently, based on that, once again, a reflection of the movement, that when a book which was being edited by Chinna, when he was, who was heading the Discrimination and Exclusion Studies, when he was writing this book on dividing Dalits, that I was able to kind of contribute another chapter into that, where actually I did exactly the same thing which I am doing today. I was looking at the judgment of the Supreme Court in a critical perspective about when it struck down the subclassification. And so that's the continuum between 7 and 10. I was still a student. I had started, I was not become a faculty. I have not experienced what happens within the institutions. I was looking at the side of the movement, and it was very crucial for me to reflect what is the demand and how the movement was trying to engage with the state, with the people at large, and of course with the political leaders and political parties. Subsequently, as it was said, that then I became part of Delhi University, and then subsequently I became part of JNU, and then my engagement with the institution and my engagement with how the institution actually reflects, and I keep saying this point over and over again in my classrooms, that it is very easy to understand the rules of the game, because that is what sets and tells you about the tone. But it is actually equally important to understand the games within those rules. And when I started understanding those games within those rules, then I realized that I need to reflect upon my own position, and not at the cost of what the demand of the movement was, not at distancing and not sort of neglecting what the demand of the movement was, but to see the larger, bigger picture in terms of how to realize the demands which is being made by the movement. And therefore, my position over a period of time has shifted and is trying to look at this dialectic between the demand of the movement and the response of the state, that the way they act together, and what is the ultimate consequence. And in this context, I want to say it very clear that, as I said in the beginning, that today when I look at the judgment and today when I look at the understanding, I mean, if the Supreme Court had confined itself to the question of law and had given this judgment, I would have been little less critical of what is happening today and how it is being interpreted. But the point is that the Supreme Court has actually gone in a judicial overreach, and therefore I'm trying to understand that is it a judicial foxpass, right? That what is it that will it prove to be a judicial foxpass? And there are indications, and very strong indications, which I'll take a couple of minutes to sort of explain that why, how the state and how, and when I say state, I'm including the judiciary into it, and that's the larger perspective which I want to bring. And it is much more crucial for us to understand and to sort of question the judgment, because, and I'm using a phrase which was used by K. Balgopal when he had said that, if you want to really understand the nature and the character of the Supreme Court, the apex court, you have to understand, and you have to, there is nothing hidden in that how virtuous, reluctance has been there in the face of the Supreme Court to understand that India is a caste society. And that if there is something needs to be done, if you look at all the judgments, all their impressions on the issue of reservation, you will really understand, there is nothing hidden to understand that how difficult it was for them to understand that India is a caste society and there is something needed. And there, what is the promise? What is the promise of the constitution that has been delivered, not as a benevolence of the state, but as a demand that was coming from the struggle, from the movement, and it was understood in the constitution making process, and it was kind of delivered in that process. And why I kind of say this, because I want you to, before I get into the substantial issue about the subclassification, which is my position, which is coming from the movement, I want to kind of first critically place myself in terms of understanding the verdict. Many of you probably, some of you, of course, a large part of you would know, but some of you who are in your first and third semesters probably might not have followed the debate which happened in 2019. And what happened in 2019 in the Supreme Court? There was a Allahabad High Court judgment which was about the idea about how to implement reservation in an institution. And the Allahabad High Court judgment had upturned the previous practice and the law, which was about when you try and understand the implementation of reservation in institutions, you have to take institution as a unit, as a whole. Because that's where only when you get a critical number into which those ideas and the numbers of reservation can actually be realized in terms of going there. The Allahabad High Court judgment actually turned it down and said that no, the real practice should be that it should go department-wise, which was the debate on the roster. Now, to be very frank, the debate on roster has been made so complex that, and the reason for that making of the complex is the notion of the state that I'm trying to talk about. So how do we understand this dialectic? And unless we understand that, it is very difficult to have one-sided view about whether the judgment is going to help or it is going to actually divide and break it's actually anti-reservation judgment. Now, so when this was passed and there was a movement and the government was forced to take a position against that, of course, because of the demand of the against the people's movement, and they filed a leave petition in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court refused to listen to it, and they said that okay, yes, no, it has to be the unit, has to be the department, and there are hundreds and colleges in this country where the departments are made of 1 or 2 faculty. Right? And in fact, there are many colleges where the highest number of faculty is only 10 or 12 or 15. Right? So, in a way, the argument which was devised by the, once again, the judiciary to kill the whole idea of reservation about how to go about it was something which was upheld by the Supreme Court. And the government was only forced to bring an ordinance and say that no, and that that is invalid, only once again by a big movement of all of us together. There was a big movement about it where it was decided that it is not. Now, the second point is, and which is about our own experience of this university, and I also want to place that as a context. Now, I'm sure some of you would be thinking that I am not talking about subclassification, I'm only talking about the implementation of it, but that's a very important point, and I will come to the subclassification in a while, but I want to place this. Our own experience in this university, for which we had to do a big legal fight, was once again about the same system of roster, into which all of a sudden we came to know that the whole system of roster has been changed. And they have done they have reduced 36 posts, which was earlier reserved as backlog. Now, once again, what is this backlog? Which is again related to the question of what we see in today's time, and we have been telling this even today that what is happening in this university, that if you have 104 non-found suitable candidates being declared by the university, majority of those non-found suitable candidates are from the reserved categories, the SC, ST, and OBC. But I don't want to reduce this debate only to NFS, and I'm aware of it that yes, it is not just being reduced. But the point is about that when on the one hand you have a judiciary which is so reluctant, and I wanted to add a term, it is not just tortuous reluctance of the Supreme Court, it is also very torturous reluctance, because it has led to a lot of pain into the movement, into the people who face that discrimination. And that is where the point needs to be made in that context. That point is that if you are going to say today, tomorrow, because there was, this was pending in the Supreme Court since, I would say, 2008, if I'm not wrong. 2008 was the appeal first when Devendra Singh had challenged. And there is a history to it, and I also wanted to point out to that when I come to the subclassification debate. And there was a lot of, if the Supreme Court or the judiciary was really interested into addressing the issue, it could have actually experimented, it could have ordered, it could have invested its time and energy into understanding the issue in reality. But no. While it went on to claiming that it is about the judicial interpretation, it is about the law, when it came as the verdict, they went, it is an, as I'm saying, it's a judicial overreach, including the whole concept of creamy layer, which has nothing to do with the reservation, the way it has been, sort of enshrined, it has been given through the Constitution. Now, so that's the position that is very important for you to understand. And I wanted to say something more, that in terms of what you see as in a university system where you have, even if you have university as a whole as a unit, with the existing system, that the university as a whole is taken as a unit, you have, in these higher education systems, and I'm not once again reducing the whole debate on reservation in employment only to higher universities or higher education. But it is actually a very crucial part of it, because the whole allegation is about taking away the jobs. And if that is that it has been cornered by a few section of the population, then one has to really look for it, that if it is really so large a section of population that it is cornering, then there should never be an NFS, right? Now, if that is not the case, the point is that when you have in a department 1 or 2 positions coming, and if you want to then go into the the subcategorization of A and B and C and D, and then try to make it that, if there is no category person available from category B, and therefore it would remain as an FS, then it is certainly and it is inevitable that it will be used by the state, by the judiciary, and mind you, whenever you go to the court in terms of asking for a qualitative judgment, the judges would say that no, this is a matter of academic debate, don't ask us about why the NFS and all of it, right? It is not a quantitative or it's not a matter of law. It's a matter of the selection committee does it NFS, and therefore you go and discuss it within the academic council. But so it is very important for us to understand that what is it that the Supreme Court or the judiciary has given. So then, is it not upon us to try and understand what is hidden behind this? And unless we understand and expose that hidden factor behind this, I think it would be too early for us to say that this is a historic judgment. And if we do not take this, then it is really good. I mean, the political parties will have a big difficulty in taking a position on it, but I think the academics should not have a difficulty in taking this position. And the reason is the following, that the argument about, and the reasons goes on both sides, that the argument about that, that political parties will use this as a matter of division, as a matter of dividing the society, is something which you can say that there is truth, but there is also a fact of reluctancy in terms of the movement itself. That why is it not why is it not thought through the movement? So, for example, I'm giving you 2 examples. Much before the Andhra case, when it was enacted and it went to the Supreme Court, Punjab had done it in early mid 1970s, in 1975. They had actually subclassified, and it was actually going well with the whole system. There was no movement against it. It was only when the Andhra Pradesh judgment came in 2004 that it became difficult for the Punjab government to actually do it. They tried to sort of take a simpler route, trying to convert it into Act, but that even Act was challenged, and subsequently it has been stopped. Now the point is that if you really look at the data between 75 and 2004, and if you look at class 1, not class 1, and that's also a question that one should try and investigate. But if you look at class 2 and class 3 employees, you will see that there has been a substantial increase in the number from the subcategories which were given priority in the employment, right? So the question is that, can we not do that exercise and try and understand, can the movement itself not come up with this idea about how to address this question? I mean, it is not also a point about, you look away the question that no, we are not interested, this is only about dividing. You have to really, the movement will have to really understand that why is it that this demand is constant. And I think as a social scientist, as academicians, as students and scholars and teachers, I think it would be totally injustice if we completely say that all demands and all movements are politically sort of charged. And I'll give you examples that when it happened in Punjab in 75, there was no movement. It was a move by the Congress government at that point in time that they did it. And they did it, and subsequently it only got challenged after the Andhra judgment. In the case of Andhra, you will see that there was a strong movement. I mean, there can be differences about whether we understand the movement itself as a political, and I think that every movement is political. So we can't just say that no movement is political or any movement is only a result of political conspiracy. That's not right.
there are demands, there are, and I think even on this campus there have been at least hundreds of term papers being written, and many couple of dozen pieces must have been written about the need for the rationalization, the rainfall. And I think we cannot just keep our eyes shut in terms of what the movement is demanding. But is it the best way to do it is the question. Is this judicial overreach the best way? Because judiciary has never been an ally of the social movement. And we have ample examples. I mean, we are in the midst of a crisis in this country. But what is the response of the judiciary? I mean, we can't trust this system that this will do justice to the demands of the marginalized of the marginalized. So we have to sort of understand that perspective, and I think my limited attempt was to sort of bring this dialectic and to understand how we move from there. And I think our next speakers will be speaking more on this. Thank you so much.